ومن أحسن قولا ممن دعا إلى الله وعمل صالحا وقال إنني من المسلمين.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulihi Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Some few months ago, I talked about something here at the Masjid about the importance of raising young men, responsible men. And because, when you face many issues in our society, when you look at the society issues, many times we begin to observe that how the men are treating their families and how the men are conducting their own affairs. And when you study their issues, many times we come to learn that they were not raised, they were not given proper tarbiyah by their families, especially by their mothers and fathers. And now these young men, now they've come to the age where now they're getting married. But even after they're getting married, they don't have confidence. They don't understand the concept of responsibility. They don't understand the concept of making decisions in life and so forth. And hence they're fully dependent on their mothers. And it becomes there's so much dependency on their parents that then the point comes that whenever the parents tell them to do anything, they will do exactly that. And this has caused many issues in our society that the men are growing up and they're not, these young men who are getting married, they're not actually men, they're still boys, they lack maturity. Now, while we have an issue amongst the men, let us not fool ourselves that there aren't any issues with the women. There are a lot of young women also growing up that they have a lot of issues prior to coming into the marriage, and their tarbiyah by their parents is making them fail. Their tarbiyah is setting them up for failure. Just like in the case of many boys, we talked about being a mama's boy. Just like that, there is something called a daddy's girl. Many of these mama's boys are spoiled. And then the fact that they are spoiled, this comes to haunt them when they get married. Eventually their wives or those girls they get married to, eventually they're the ones who are suffering. In the same case, there are many girls who have not been given a proper tarbiyah. They have not been given a proper understanding of what life is. And they have not been given a realistic expectation by their own parents. And hence, when they grow up and these women also get married, they might get married to a good guy, but because they've also grown up in a way that is not appropriate, then they also can cause problems in a marriage. And I just want to be fair about this, that just like there is a mama's boy, there's something called a daddy's girl. So inshallah today, quickly, I want to go through some important things that we can do when it comes to our young girls. So first of all is that it is very important that when it comes to our young daughters, that we teach them the importance of being responsible when it comes to money. See, there is a trend that goes on, especially when it comes to girls and their relationship with their father and so forth, that in many families where the mother may be the strict one, the father is the one who just keeps on giving and giving and giving. And many times we come from a culture that our mindset is such that eventually our girls will leave one day, they'll get married one day. So let me give them all that I can. Let me give them my heart. Let me give them my love. Let me give them whatever they want, because one day they will be gone. But what we don't realize is that as parents, if we keep on giving them whatever they want, and whenever they want money, they come to us and we give them money whenever they want, we are not doing them any good, but we are spoiling them. Now, as a result, what usually happens is that when they get married, when they get married and then they are let's say they are financially dependent on their husbands and so forth, then it becomes very difficult. Why? Because then imagine the husband has lost his job, but they feel like that they are entitled to his money. They are spoiled when they were kids, since the time they are kids. Now the time comes that now they need to be a little more considerate toward their husbands. They need to be more considerate toward their families, to their children and so forth, but they're not considerate. And rather than understanding the situation, they feel like that they need to be given more and more money. And whenever they ask for money, they should be given money. And I remember there was a brother who came to me one time and he said, and this happened actually during COVID, he had lost his job and so forth. And he said that before COVID had come, I was giving my wife a certain amount of money every single week. MashaAllah, this brother was very well to do. So he was giving and he had no problem. But he had a problem that after COVID, he lost his job. Alhamdulillah, he had a healthy savings account. But he was telling me that instead of his wife understanding that now these are the circumstances, these are the conditions, let me scale back on my spending, let me scale back on buying things and so forth, she kept her demand as it was. Even though the husband lost his job, even though, he was now spending money and living off his savings. And of course, a person has that fear that the savings are going to run out. But instead of that wife being considerate, she said to her husband that I want to be given the same amount of money even during COVID. Whether you have a job or not, you have to give me the same amount of money. And this caused a very big issue within the family, a very big issue within the husband and wife. So what we need to do as parents is that, especially when it comes to our daughters, that I understand you want to give them your love and give everything that you have to them, but at the same time, we have to also make them responsible. If, just like your boys, if they want something, create an incentive for them. If you don't create an incentive for them and you keep on giving them, eventually they will become spoiled, and you cannot switch and change characteristics and habits and behaviors overnight. It does not happen, and eventually this does affect their marriage. Whenever the time comes and they do get married, it does affect their marriage. Another issue that we have seen in many cases, especially when it comes to our daughters, is that in this day and age we have given them unlimited freedom. So yes, they may be studying, but that does not mean that they have unlimited freedom. I've talked about this before when it comes to the boys, that just like with our boys, I've said that they should not be given unlimited freedom. There should be a curfew time. They should be coming back at home at a certain time. Many families, we have this discrepancy. We have this very, great imbalance where the guys, they can be out as long as they want. The girls have to be home at Maghrib time. But now we're also seeing a trend that the girls are staying out for long hours. And the parents, they actually marvel at this and they think that they are great parents. And the reality is that this is not great parenting. We have this issue that today most of our kids don't want to be at home. This is another issue altogether. They don't want to be at home. Our boys don't want to be at home. Our girls don't want to be at home. And in reality, there's nothing wrong in being at home. In fact, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was asked once, what do we do in the times of fitna? What do we do in order to protect ourselves from fitna when there is fitna everywhere you go? What did the Prophet ﷺ say? He says, stay at home. Why? Because you protect yourself at home. Hence, I am urging all the parents that, especially when it comes to your boys and when it comes to your girls, you should not be given complete freedom to your kids. There are many families that the girls are leaving whenever they want. They come whenever they want. They travel whenever they want and so forth. And I'm telling you, as a parent also, and someone as a leader of the community who observes many issues in our society, that this will come back to haunt them. Imagine if they get married. No husband would like that their wife is always out and she goes whenever she wants and so forth. And you cannot just switch that behavior. If they have this unlimited freedom when they're before they get married at home, and now they get married, they just cannot change that overnight. Just like our wives do not like the men to be out all the time, likewise, the men don't like the women to be out all the time. They have responsibilities and roles. They must fulfill those roles and responsibilities. So therefore, it is very important that when it comes to our girls, that we give them, there's nothing wrong in letting them go out, study, be with their friends and so forth. But this unlimited freedom that we have provided them, it is not conducive. It is not healthy for them. It is not healthy for anyone down the road. The third thing that is also very important when it comes to our girls, just like I've mentioned this about the boys, is there has to be a certain level of discipline inside the house. That means that there are consequences. That means that everyone has to act and behave a certain way. A lot of times, once again, we see this discrepancy. The guys get away with anything they want, and the girls do not get away. And there are many families where it is the complete opposite. The girls get away with whatever they do, and the boys do not get away. And a lot of times what happens is that this causes a conflict within the family. There are a lot of women who have called me and told me that our brothers get away with whatever they do because they are men. And I get a lot of calls also from brothers that our sisters can do whatever they want, but my father loves my sister so much that she can get away with whatever she does. And once again, this imbalance creates a lot of sibling rivalry amongst themselves. So that is why it is very important that when it comes to our kids, Part of tarbiyah is being a disciplinarian. That means that we have to put certain discipline parameters within our house and so forth, and we establish this discipline and we set down these discipline rules for everyone in the family. The next thing that's also very important is, just like when it comes to our boys, I've talked about this before, teaching them responsibility. Many times our boys do not understand what is the responsibility when they become husbands. Likewise, we have a lot of girls who have the same issue, that because of the tarbiyah they have received in the family, many times the women or the parents, they say that let the boy do everything, leave the girl, do not give her any kind of responsibilities, any kind of commitments inside the house. And eventually this comes back to haunt them when they become older, and perhaps the day comes when they get married and so forth, they're not in the habit of doing anything. Then they may be asking for maids and so forth, and the husband may not have the money or the financial resources to pay for one, and this once again causes a lot of issues. You all know that majority of you watching this video, if you are in your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, we look back and we know how strict our parents were. We understand how much discipline they were able to lay out inside the family and inside the house. Now we look back at them and we appreciate them for that discipline. We appreciate them for being strict with us. We appreciate for them putting down their foot when it came to. Likewise, when it comes to our children, because this is the next generation, we have to also lay down some discipline rules, and we have to give them roles and responsibilities, and make sure that we give them responsibilities and make sure that they live up to those commitments and responsibilities. There should be accountability inside the house. If you teach your son accountability, if you teach your daughter accountability, eventually when they grow up, they will understand accountability. One day they become a husband, one day they become a wife, they will understand that I have a role and responsibility, and I have to maintain that responsibility. The last thing is, and I said this last time, especially when it comes to the mama's boy, I said this very clearly, that if you ever see a boy who is considered as a mama's boy, meaning that he's always dependent on his mother for every single thing, I said this last time as just my own personal suggestion, that you should never give your daughters to that kind of person. Likewise, when it comes to our daughters, I will say this, that if a woman does not truly treat her husband with dignity and respect, she's always yelling at the husband, she's always demeaning the husband, she is the one who, she is creating a situation inside the family that she runs all the affairs, and she demeans everyone, and she acts like as if she's the only one who's running everything. Yes, I understand there are many families where the mothers do take over, but once again, if there is respect for the father and respect for the dignity of the father and her husband and so forth, then no problem. But if parents, when it comes to your boys, if you see a girl raised in a family where the wife or her mother does not have any respect, and if she has no discipline in her life, and she has, she's been spoiled by money and so forth, just like in the case of the boys, I will say this in the case of the girls also, that do not get your boys married to them. Because there are so many divorces happening in our society, and many times when you look at these women who are, a majority of the divorces are caused by women, okay? Now, I'm not saying that there's not cases where men have been abused, have been abusive and so forth. Yes, there are many cases where men have been abusive, and as a result, the wife is seeking a divorce. But there are a lot of times where wives are seeking divorces. Why? Because their complaint is, I have responsibilities. I want complete freedom. This is, my money is my money and his money is my money. That, I'm going to talk about this inshallah some other day, but this concept is a flawed concept. It does not exist in our deen that my money is my money and his money is also my money. No, that does not exist in our deen at all. So the thing is that, once again, we have to raise our boys in the appropriate way, in the correct way, because one day when they become fathers, when they become husbands, they can become the best version of a husband and a father. At the same time, we have to raise our girls the correct way also, and especially when it comes to daddies. Okay, I understand there's something called a daddy's girl, but we have to raise them correctly, because one day, inshallah, they'll become a wife to someone and they'll become mothers. And when it comes to the mothers, if they have been raised the proper way, they'll be able to provide proper tarbiyah to their upcoming children, inshallah. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect our upcoming generation. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give all of us as parents the ability to provide proper tarbiyah to our kids. Ameen Rabbil Alameen. Wa jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
إن المسلمين والمسلمات والمؤمنين والمؤمنات والقانتين والقانتات والصادقين والصادقات والصابرين والصابرات والخاشعين والخاشعات والمتصدقين والمتصدقات والصائمين والصائمات والحافظين فروجهم والحافظات والذاكرين الله كثيرا والذاكرات أعد الله لهم مغفرة وأجرا عظيما.